Hafiz Qul Muhammad, mashallah, that the issue of the finality of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not contentious at all. It shouldn't create confusion. It's proven definitively from the Quran. ما كان محمد أبا أحد من رجالكم ولكن رسول الله وخاتم النبيين. It's proven from the Sunnah, so many different ahadith which clearly state that La Nabiyya Ba'di, that there is no prophet after me. It's proven from common sense as well. This whole idea that there can be someone to eclipse the greatness of our Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, it does not register with us that there could be someone as low and baseless and ignorant as Mirza Ghulam Ahmad to in any way eclipse the status of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's inconceivable. Just a quick conclusion on this issue, and then inshallah we will have some questions inshallah. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself said that there would be imposters. That he himself, in a hadith recorded by most of the scholars of hadith, said that there will be people who he termed as Dajjalun, Dajjals. And Dajjal is a very strong word in Arabic to mean when someone is a compulsive, very big liar. The Prophet said there would be 30 Dajjals who would all claim prophethood. So the fact that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad claimed prophethood does not come as a surprise to us. It's something that we expected. And certainly he is not the first person to claim Nabuwwa. As Hafiz explained, in the time of the Prophet, just as he left this world, Musaylima Kazzab appeared. In the early ages there was a person called Mukhtar who also claimed prophethood, and likewise there was a person called Ansi who claimed prophethood. It's going to be 30, and most scholars that I have spoken to believe that those 30 have not yet appeared. So Mirza Ghulam Ahmad is one of those people. This next bit here is just a theory. You can buy it, you don't have to buy it. Prior to this, what we have told you is definitive from the Quran, from the Sunnah. In that there is no dispute whatsoever, but this is just a theory, and the idea behind this is that I'd like to put into context the time and the climate that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad was living in. And it seems quite clear that he was not an intelligent person. He was not this great person who thought he could revive religion. Rather, he was simply an opportunist. That he saw an opportunity and he grasped upon that. He lived at a time where in India Wahhabism was taking a very strong hold in that area. He was living at a time where unfortunately it was almost fashionable for people to insult the status of Nabuwwa and Risala. And because of this climate and because of this environment, he went down the road that he did. So if anything, that we can say that he was just a product, and you have to put into context what kind of situation he was actually living in. Let us see that on a diagram, and inshallah this will explain all. This is the period. We'll show the so-called scholarly background to Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, and we'll give you an idea of when he lived and who his contemporaries were. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad lived between 1835 and 1908. Remember also, and this is something which is picked up, I didn't pick up so explicitly in this presentation, but there are arguments that you also have to consider the British rule in India at the time, and the role perhaps they had in trying to make Mirza Ghulam Ahmad one of their agents. I haven't gone into that, but that's something you can read up on later. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad lived between 1835 and 1908. Just prior to that, we see the time of Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, the founder of Wahhabism. Just a generation before that. That was the background to that. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad was a contemporary of Rashid Ahmad Gangohi, 1829 to 1905, more or less same time. Remember in the first lesson we talked about how Rashid Ahmad Gangohi attacked not just the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he invented this concept, this idea that ma'azallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can lie. He lived in his time. At the same time, Qasim Nanutwi roughly lived as well, 1832 to 1880. You can see how that matches with the time of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. Again, a Deobandi scholar. And I'll just give you an example. I'll give you an example of what kind of rubbish he came out with. He said, and this is a quote from him, that if another prophet appears after Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, then it does not change the fact that he is the seal of all prophets. This is what Qasim Nanutwi said. That yes, I accept that the Prophet is Khatam al-Nabiyyin, but if another Prophet comes after him, he's still Khatam al-Nabiyyin. Which is a contradiction in terms, and the whole purpose of saying Khatam al-Nabiyyin is that you're the last one. So how does that not affect it? That certainly might have played a factor in what Ghulam Ahmad came out with. Likewise, same kind of error, again, Ashraf Ali Thanvi, 1863 to 1943. Again, you can see the overlap with that time. The kind of rubbish he came out with, he said that there are certain attributes that are common between me and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is quoted from him. He also said, Astaghfirullah, he said, the kind of knowledge of the unseen given by Allah Almighty to the Holy Prophet has also been given to animals, lunatics and children. Ma'azallah, astaghfirullah. This is taken from Hifzul Iman. This is what Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanvi said. Look at the climate that he was living in. Given this climate, then you will see that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad thought that if the rank of prophethood was being projected as so low and as so ordinary, Mirza thought to himself that I could be a prophet. That he saw himself that the Wahhabis and Deobandis have propagated, the Prophet as being just a mere mortal, to such an extent that he came along and he thought, well, there's no reason why I can't achieve that rank. That if the Prophet is so ordinary, then hang on, I can have a go here as well. So in short, what we find is that he lived at a time where the status of the Prophet ﷺ was being attacked so severely and was being downgraded so much that an ignorant and foolish person like Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, he came along and he claimed prophethood. So this, you have to remember as well that everything is a product of its time. This is something that children are taught in school when you do subjects like the social sciences and history, that you must always analyze something according to its time. Everything is a product of its time. You cannot examine a phenomena and take it out of its context. You must look at what's going on at that time to understand something fully. Take the example of Adolf Hitler and the Nazis in the 30s and 40s. Their popularity, there was a reason behind that, there was a context behind that. That the only reason he got so many votes and the only reason why the Nazi party was so popular in the 30s and 40s, because the background to that, just prior to that, was the Great Depression of the 1920s, where people were completely disorientated with the financial situation. In Germany, people were very angry with how Germany had been treated in First World War. And as a reaction to that, Adolf Hitler, he incited them to rise up against them. If Adolf Hitler had existed 100 years earlier, perhaps he wouldn't have come out with the message he did. Earlier this year, the British National Party, the BNP, they won 2 seats at the European elections in July. And again, that's just a product of that specific time. And what's the reason behind that? Because just prior to that, in May, we saw how the MP's expenses row had erupted. And people were completely fed up of politics as a whole, with all the parties, with the Conservatives, with the Labours and the Lib Dems, because all of them had been tarnished with this scandal. And as a reaction to that, people began to vote for this fourth party, began to vote for the British National Party. Will it happen again? Would it have happened 2 years ago? Perhaps not. In short, it's a product of its time. And exactly the same way, Mirza too was just basically a product of his time. He lived at a time when blasphemy was fashionable. If he had lived 300 years earlier, his message would have been completely diluted and completely rejected there and then. And like those people before him, he would have been beheaded. That Musaylima Kazzab, remember when he gave the message of Islam, pretended that he was a prophet, Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq, he dropped everything and he waged war against him. Mukhtar, when he made the claim of prophethood, straight away he was chased and he was put down. Ansi was beheaded and he was put on a cross and his flesh was left for the people to see and for animals to eat. That was how people dealt with kazzabs, with liars in the past. And then my argument is, if he had lived only 300-400 years earlier in the Middle Ages of Islam, then he certainly would have been beheaded. And what you will find is, and perhaps this is no coincidence, that the best way to preserve the Khatm Nabuwwa, The best way to preserve the finality of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is to preserve his high rank given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you speak highly of him, and if you hold him in his right place, then no one will dare question Khatm Nabuwwat. And it is no coincidence that when we look at the Middle Ages of Islam, when we have these great scholars, no one claimed to be a prophet. That it was not a problem. Why? Because all of these scholars, from Imam Ghazali, Imam Nawawi, the great Shafi'i scholar, Ibn Hajar rahmatullahi alayh, Imam Sakhawi, a great scholar as well, Imam Jalaluddin Suyuti, whose book I referred to earlier, Imam Qastalani, great author of Mawahibul Laduniya, Qazi Ayaz rahmatullahi alayh, who I haven't mentioned. All of these great scholars, they put the Prophet's position in its right place. And because of that climate, no one dared to say, okay, I can be a prophet. They knew it was a high state, no one could reach that. So in this middle period, you will find that there were hardly anyone who claimed prophethood. But conversely, what we find is that when the climate was created where people were ghustahs, people were having a go at Nabuwwa and Risala, then the likes of Qadiani appeared. And it's quite strange now that the likes of Maulana Maududi and some scholars within the Deobandis and the Wahhabis now, they too have a go at Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. And I'm thinking, well, you created this monster in the first place. This is the Frankenstein that you made. That because you actually, placed the maqam of the Prophet so low, that you actually opened the door for the likes of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. And there you are now, in the 40s, I think Maulana Maududi was supposedly instrumental in the Khatm Nabuwwa movement. But the truth is, he's the one that actually instigated this. He's got blood on his hands because of this. So in short, it's perhaps Mirza, he's just an opportunist. He was cunning, at most. He was not an intellectual or a clever person. He was cunning in a Machiavellian sense of the word. He was not a genius. He was not a very clever person. At most, he just took an opportunity that was there. We'll conclude on that. Before we finish though, as it is the middle of the program that we are doing, the 12-week program, we are doing a catch-up with the handouts that we have been giving. So if there are any sheets that you are missing at the moment, then there will be a table set up upstairs and downstairs for the women as well, where you can take some of the sheets that you have missed out on. Next week, inshallah ta'ala, wa rasulihi wal yawm al-akhir, we will consider the last day. We will talk about the last day. Iman bil yawm al-akhir. And a couple of points. Again, it's a very vast subject. We will try to be concise as possible. Signs of the last day. The Prophet ﷺ told us countless signs before the appearance of the final day. Logical proof for the last day. This is something we have to believe in, but using our head and using our common sense, we can deduce the existence and the appearance of the last day. We will talk about that. And then on the day itself, the key events. The hisab, the hashr, the mizan, the weights, the sirat, the bridge, shafa'ah, the intercession of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All of these kind of aspects will be touched upon as well. So that will be next Sunday after Maghrib prayer, which inshallah ta'ala will be at 4:24. Jazakallah.